Hey folks, this is Ken Kunkle. I am a trademark and copyright attorney in the Twin Cities. The reason I'm reaching out today is obviously we've got a situation going on with education and the COVID virus. I've had a couple questions from people texting me and emailing me and calling me the last day or so. And so I wanted to try to answer a couple questions best I can. And I'm going to just say right off the bat, if you're an educator and you're wondering about what your school's policies are with regard to copyright protected materials, at the end of the day, you need to consult your school district and their legal counsel with regard to this. But I wanted to just give you a little bit of information. Frequently, we run into this question on the basis of college educators. And so it's a little bit different in this situation where we're getting into the elementary and the K through 12 systems. Basically, the problem that some people are running into is how do I present materials online, be it YouTube, Zoom, or whatever you're using, in a way that isn't going to get me in trouble from a copyright perspective. Now, hopefully, there are not the booksellers aren't out there getting ready to spring a trap or anything like that. But obviously, we need to make sure that people are still being somewhat conservative in the way they approach these things. But we want to make sure kids get educated. So the first thing is there's a couple different ways people sometimes ask this question. The first one is this fair use for me to read a book, for example, to kids for my classroom and put it online on YouTube? The answer is no. Unfortunately, the way the laws are written, it's not fair use. Fair use is basically saying it is an infringement, but there's an exception here for beneficial, certain very limited, narrow reasons. You reading a children's book to children in that context would not typically fall within the fair use examples. The next question, though, is there is an exemption for there has been a long-standing exception for something called face-to-face teaching. Now, that's exactly what it is. Sounds like it's usually more for media-type content. The idea being that you're in a classroom, you can show the content, and it's not an infringement of copyright to do so. However, that older rule that's out there that allows for that, and it's fairly broad, is limited specifically to face-to-face education. Obviously, that's not what we have here. However, there is one more option that is really probably most relevant and prevalent in this situation, and I would encourage you to do a little more research of this on your own as you kind of work through this, because it does require some internal policies of your school district to technically abide by. Again, we're talking about the technicalities here. That's something called the TEACH Act, TEACH Act. It was enabled a while back. I'm just looking at it over on my other monitor here. It's can be found at Title 17, Section 110, subsection 2 of the U.S. Code. You can take a look at it if you want and try to decipher it there. It's kind of awkwardly written, so I'll just let you know that ahead of time. Basically, what it says, however, is that we're going to carve out some exceptions for distance learning environments, and I think this probably applies in that context. To my knowledge, none of the current pending legislation is going to address these things. Hopefully, maybe they'll put some additional clarifications in to make sure that it is covered. But right now, I think the best option for most people that are looking to put materials online for their students can be found in the TEACH Act. I'm just going to kind of go through that. If you want to find out more about the TEACH Act, what I'm going to encourage you to do is go out and do some Googling and searching, I should say, for the TEACH Act. You're going to find it most often in reference to colleges or universities and their policies towards their professors. The benefit of that is there are lots of checklists out there that these universities provide for people to help their instructors make sure that they're in compliance. I'm just going to go through one right now, and this one's from Fordham University, just to kind of give you an idea of what some of the policies is, or the checklist that you kind of got to ask yourself some of the questions. First question is the institution a nonprofit, accredited educational institution? The answer, or government agency. Most cases, public education, that's going to be their case. Does the organization have a policy on the use of copyrighted material or material protected by copyright? That's something you would have to answer with your facilities. I presume that a lot of them do have policies. They may not have addressed this issue, however, so they may be needing to technically amend their policies. Does that university provide accurate information to faculty about copyright? I presume they do. Is the system will not interfere with technological controls within materials, and so on down the line. I'm not going to get into that. With regard to your class, is it a part of your regular offering of the institution? In this case, probably so. Materials are specifically for students in the class, not for the general public. Only students, now that here's where we start getting into the more difficult part for you guys, is the, let's see, only students will have access to the materials. So what that means is basically you can't just publicly put it out there. If you are going to put it out there, there do need to be some limitations on it, whether it's password protected or some other limitation, so that the general public can't just go to the website or Google or YouTube and find that material. So that's kind of a key component on all of that. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. You'll only make the materials available online for the relevant context of the classroom, which means obviously you need to make sure to pull them down at a later point, and hopefully that'll be sooner than later. And the material are directly related to what you're trying to teach in the class. So are you teaching reading? Are you teaching math? Whatever it might be, that's one of the things you're going to look at. And the material will be provided at your direction at the relevant time during the class. So I would encourage you to maybe limit, put it out there as it becomes available or needed as a part of the curriculum that you're providing. You're also going to say within the document, or I would recommend you consider whether, again, you've got to default to whatever your school's policy is. But one of the things you're going to want to look at is providing some notice within the context of the written materials that the material is protected by copyright, and that you'll make sure you try to limit their ability of people to make copies of it. So those are a couple of different things. And that really is the heart of the majority of it. But you want to look at those things. I'm going to try to add some links to a couple of the different checklists that I have run across. Again, you cannot rely on these for legal advice, but it might be an opportunity for you to make sure you're at least moving in the right direction. And if you need to provide resources to your administration in the event they need to make modifications to their policies as well. But again, what we're really talking about here is something called the Teach Act. Again, there is quite a bit of material out there online on it, but I want to direct you to it in the event you have any questions about providing that online education experience as we go forward. So best of luck to all of you, and thank you for the work you do.